once I come visit an attraction, I should leave so satisfied that I am thinking about my next visit.
Hi everyone, we are back, and this time I'm super excited to be speaking with one of the inspirations behind Wize Talks, a real model of experience and involvement in the attractions industry, and the kind of guy that doesn't need any kind of introductions, as I'm sure that everybody has listened to him or watched one of his presentations at least once. Josh, it's great to speak with you today, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for that great introduction. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to chatting with you today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. It's even more so as you have just launched BackLooper, which for me is like an amazing project. And basically, this is what we will be covering today. We're going to speak about BackLooper and about the best practices in terms of guest feedback, or maybe it sounds a little bit better, guest experience.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me know, where would you like to start?
Okay, so I know that this is a project that you've been working at for quite a few years now. And I'd like us to start with speaking a little bit about what BackLooper is about and why have you started such a project?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start by saying, this was really born out of a longstanding interest in measuring consumer sentiment as far as what it is that guests are saying in terms of their guest experience when visiting an attraction, as far as how much they enjoyed it, and what opportunities does the guest have to provide feedback that is constructive for the business, for the operator, to be able to make continuous improvements and then be able to continually measure those improvements over time. So it really started several years ago when I looked at ways of really taking large blocks of texts, like say, a TripAdvisor review or, a guest feedback email, and really extracting out what are the really important pieces of information with this. Because let's say you read a TripAdvisor review, or even if, a guest sends in a long, lengthy complaint, there's a lot of it that probably doesn't matter, that maybe you can take that part out and put it to the side, that maybe the guest has a lot of emotion in it or a lot of descriptive verbiage. So we came to the park because it was my niece's 8th birthday and she was so excited to ride this ride, and then was absolutely disappointed when it rained and the ride was closed for the rest of the day. It's like, okay, we got to the end of that sentence before we actually had an important piece of information that we pulled out. And there's so much of that throughout, whether it's online reviews or whether it's through, any type of guest feedback, even with guests, calling in and making a phone call, as far as being able to pull out those key metrics that can then be compiled and aggregated, and then say, okay, well, what are our top priorities? So the mindset behind this is really looking at what are the top priorities that guests are saying that will help drive what we need to do to fix right now. What are our top concerns that if we fix these, then now, all right, we can move on to the next, and hopefully the next one isn't as big of a problem right now. So all of this kind of turned into a consulting program that I ran for several years. I spent many years with Amusement Advantage prior to BackLooper. This initially was offered as a consulting service of just, hey, I'll analyze your online reviews. Continued to grow, and then as it continued to grow with the process, the actual feedback collection component of it was something that was really intriguing, because for several years it was pulling data from public sources, and there was really a missing piece as far as being able to help the business get that feedback. And so once we were able to incorporate that, well, now we are really reaching out to guests directly and putting wheels in motion to now having this feedback collection be part of the guest experience, part of the operation, and goes very much hand in hand with what it is that they're looking to measure. And this is one of the most important things too, if the guest does have a concern, and we want we want to pull complaints. We want to hear as much as possible as far as what the guest did not enjoy about their experience. By doing it through BackLooper, we're now able to keep this in-house and keep it through a private channel. So if there are flaws, if there are friction points, then you're not learning about it from social media. You're not learning about it from online review sites. You're learning about it from your guests directly. And now you can engage back with the guest to now have this conversation with them to hopefully get them over the hump, make them more satisfied. And by the time they do get to whether it's Google reviews or TripAdvisor, Yelp, whatever it is, they're posting a positive review about the experience that they had, particularly with how their issue was resolved. And that can be that can create even higher satisfaction than if a guest came in and had a normal, enjoyable experience. So that's the philosophy behind the whole product.
Just as a quick question, we've got on one side we have customer service, and on the other side we have customer experience. What is the difference between the two of those, and how does the guest feedback fit in the overall customer experience?
Absolutely. No, it's a fantastic question, something that I think about a lot. And I've heard a lot of people's different interpretations of it, but I'll give you mine. And I'll say that customer service is very much operational and in the moment. And it is about a friendly smile and eye contact, right. Smiling, even if you're wearing a mask, it's okay. The guests can still tell that you're smiling, about, offering the best type of assistance. It's very much about what the guest is experiencing at that time with that staff member. In terms of, are they personalizing the experience? Are they using your name? Are they offering additional assistance? Are they maintaining enthusiasm? Are they anticipating guests' needs? Are they going above and beyond and providing wow moments, that you really take away? All of those are service interactions. You take all that, you pull back and you look at, customer experience or guest experience as the broader overview of how the guest has those specific service touch points within your organization. So when you look at guest experience, I look at it from a three-pronged approach, or really as this cycle. There is, the pre-visit, when they're not even when they're planning their visit, when they're deciding if they're going to visit, up to when they're planning their visit and how that expectation builds. And then there's the on-site, there's the duration component of it. And so the duration is when the majority of those service touch points happen. And then there's what they take with them after they leave into the post-visit. Now, those who are doing this the best, this isn't a linear experience. This is a cycle, which means that once I come visit an attraction, I should leave so satisfied that I am thinking about my next visit and starting to plan my next visit, and maybe even already financially committing to my next visit or upgrading my ticket in any way, while at the same time starting a new cycle for someone else. And then that's where the reputation and the word of mouth component comes in. So that's my view of guest experience, is saying, okay, yes, there's all of those friendly touch points, but how do they all interact with each other and fit into the greater whole of this entire guest experience cycle?
And speaking about the guest feedback side of everything, in the entire customer experience, in everything that the customer enjoys, feels regarding to the brand itself, to the center, to the attraction, how should an operator or an attraction get and gather the guest feedback and use it to create better and way beyond expectations customer experiences?
So one of the first things that I like to say is really don't be selective about soliciting guest feedback. Okay. Every single guest that walks through your door should have the opportunity to provide feedback, or at least every group of guests. If you have a family with, you have mom, dad, and then, you have, grandma and grandpa, and the small kids, maybe let's focus on kind of the core people who are driving this, who are the decision makers, who are kind of running the show in the group or the family, but not necessarily, only being selective about who's being eligible to give feedback. Like everyone should have an easy way to be able to give feedback unprompted. So these channels of communication need to be open. There needs to be an easy way for a guest to speak to someone also before, during, and after their visit, whether they are planning and having questions or concerns. And a lot of people are doing that these days because of COVID. They're calling businesses and saying, should I be worried about coming to visit you? That's part of the guest experience, and that's even part of the guest feedback process. While they're on site, anyway, if I've got an issue right now, then needing to be able to, speak to a manager and maybe have something corrected right then and there, that's always the best, because then they will ultimately go through the process more satisfied. And then the opportunity after their visit as well. So being able to prompt them, whether it's for a survey or whether it's for feedback collection, prompting them for a review once they're determined to be satisfied, that feedback should really have two purposes. And one of them is it gives the operator, gives the attraction the best opportunity to serve that guest directly, and then help them turn that guest into a promoter. So if, let's say, you come visit, at my park, whatever it is, I'm not an operator. Let's say you come visit me, and then, you tell me afterwards that maybe you didn't have a great experience, and here's why. And I need to call you very quickly. I need to respond quickly to say, Stefan, we got to talk about this. So glad you provided feedback. Let's talk about the concerns you have. Yeah, I'd be frustrated too. I'm so sorry you may have been inconvenienced. Here's what we're going to do, to fix this for you. And then hopefully by the end of that conversation, you're going to say, Josh, thanks so much for calling me. I'm so glad, you were able to resolve my concerns. I'm going to tell everyone, how great you are, that they should absolutely come visit you again. And then at that point I can say, great. Like I look forward to, reading your review online. Now at this point I can prompt you to share positive word of mouth. Now internally, I would then take that feedback, and maybe if there were any staff members who were specifically involved, to be able to have those conversations and then be able to apply that into saying, okay, how does this fall into the rest of our guest feedback collection? Are we prioritizing this accordingly? Is this a one-off situation that happened, or is this something that is now recurring that we need to move to the top of our list? So we need to maybe put some systems in place to resolve these concerns for the future.
Okay. Now, this is a bit of a different question. If it's weird, no worry, we can just cut it off later.
No, I look forward to it.
I was doing my research, looking a lot into feedback, especially for the attraction industry. And I encountered a term which, for me at least, maybe I'm the only guy that doesn't know it, was completely new. And it was the feedback loop.
Okay.
Now, my question is, what is this one? How does it work, and how can we apply it in the attractions industry?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I'm really glad that you asked that question, because I think feedback loop, BackLooper, you can see where I got the name. So when you think of, let's look at, let's say maybe you're developing a product and releasing it. So let's look at, even a technology company. They might release something that is the minimal amount to get it out to market, just to see if people like it or not. And they know that it's so far from being the final product. And then they start to get in certain elements of feedback from how the users or how customers are interacting with it. And then being able to take that feedback and say, okay, we need to make this tweak or this improvement. And then either releasing the next version or kind of hitting the refresh button and then doing the same thing again. And now we're testing more and more feedback. Particularly what BackLooper does is it helps attractions take that process with their feedback loop. So first of all, this is why I say that one of the best practices with customer feedback is that it is an ongoing thing. It's not something that should be selective or kind of just an initiative every once in a while, but a continually flowing amount of guest feedback allows you to have that ongoing feedback loop. So then by taking that feedback, you're saying, okay, these are the improvements we need to make. These are the tweaks and the adjustments that we need to make to our operations, to our guest experience. They didn't like this flavor of ice cream in our, ice cream stand. Maybe we should either discontinue it or tell the supplier or whatever it is. It gives you the intelligence that you need to know to be able to create the product or create the experience that your customers or your guests are going to enjoy the most, which results in highest satisfaction, which results in higher visitation, stronger reputation, fewer complaints, fewer negative online reviews, stronger word of mouth. And then overall, the business just keeps getting better. And the reason why it's a loop is because this is a never ending process. There is no ceiling. If you think about something like guest service, guest experience, there's no plateau. If you are the best, then now it's time to be, to outdo yourself, right? There is no max capacity for it. So by continually using that guest feedback to drive your change and drive your improvements, that's where you've got this ongoing feedback loop that helps you continue to make those enhancements. And sometimes they're not necessarily massive overhauls. And that's one of the things too, is when you're using this feedback and determining what changes we need to make, start with the operational component. Don't necessarily go to, the largest change possible, even if this is what the guest is complaining about, or what the guest is talking about, or what the feedback is showing. Because a lot of times the solution is not just the opposite of the problem, but you need to look at it more from that operational standpoint and say, okay, maybe it's not eliminating the issue, but it's eliminating the friction that guests are having that is causing the complaints that are bringing up the issue. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question or add more light into the term?
It does. So we got the complaints, the bad reviews, the frustrated, and those frustration feelings. I don't believe that people are frustrated. They just have a bad feeling about something. But we also have those amazing reviews, those heart-feeling words that we get from our customers. What should we as operators and attraction managers do with those kind of feedbacks?
With the positive feedback?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost is to, when you can, respond to that guest directly. You want to reinforce this behavior, right? A positive online review is free marketing for you. So to thank the guest, to invite them back, to show that you're thrilled that they had an amazing experience, and then be able to take that and really use that to your advantage. I've seen a lot of attractions, a lot of operators, they'll take reviews and put them on their website to show this social proof as testimonials that guests are providing. Actually, I'll give you a really cool example, something Southwest Airlines has done. So not an attraction, but still a cool example nonetheless. I live in Chicago, and they fly out of Chicago's Midway Airport, and that's it's primarily Southwest flying out of this airport, and they've taken one of the walls in the concourse and printed out. They're just Instagram posts, and you can see like kind of the Instagram frame around it, and they blew it up, and they're these beautiful images that people have taken while flying, and you can see the wing of the plane, so it's completely branded. It says Southwest on it, and they're saying something like majesty in the clouds, or like another amazing Southwest flight, or something like that. So they're taking this social engagement. It goes, it extends beyond positive reviews of just saying like, I had a good experience and I'm telling you about it. But through these social channels, it's people sharing how great of an experience, sometimes without even having to say, I had a great experience, because they're saying, look, here's the image. Obviously social media is very video driven these days, very instantaneous. That those should be the type of content that you should be sharing, because that's crowdsourcing your marketing. That's crowdsourcing your content. It's not just saying, hey, we think you're great, you should visit us, but it's also, hey, look what all these other people are not only saying, doing, but also posting. And then take that to the next level and work in those moments within your facility to encourage that social sharing. So for instance, a couple of years ago on my podcast on Attraction Pros, we had Case Lawrence. He's the founder and CEO of Circus Tricks. They're now the largest trampoline park operator in the world. Yeah. One of the cool things he said that was so interesting is they paint their ceilings black in their parks because it makes the lighting way better. And they've turned their entire parks into a photo studio. So while you're there and you're either jumping on the trampolines or you're doing the Ninja Warrior course or whatever, these are all shareable moments. And now they've added those components to help you make them look really good when you post it, whether it's on Instagram or Snapchat or now on TikTok or whatever it is, that people are now seeing that. And that's an extension of their social marketing. So there's the online review component and the social media component that really go hand in hand. That's really saying, hey, your guests have greater marketing power than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the case for a while, and that's only getting stronger and stronger.
This is actually a very cool topic, and it kind of follows up on my next question. As a personal statement, I believe that making your customers your fans, it's a must do. And the approaches that you have just mentioned were like very cool, especially the airlines one, because the brand has promoted the guest that was a fan that was promoting the brand. And it's like a loop once again.
Exactly. And then how excited do you get when you say, hey, I just had this little post on Instagram and now I'm featured on a wall at the airport that everyone's seeing as they walk past. Now it's like, hey, maybe I'm going to choose Southwest next time amongst all the other reasons why you select a specific airport.
If you have to pay a little bit extra for it.
Right.
And my question is, how do you see the future for our industry? And I'm not speaking as in short terms, not the next couple of months. I'm looking at the longer future, like the next couple of years in which customer experience will become huge. And if it's not already huge, my guess is that it will become humongous. I just dropped my pen. Who can succeed in an environment like that one? What are the things that somebody must do to succeed in an environment where customer experience is way on top?
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the things I've been saying for the last, several months throughout COVID is looking at our industry and the amount of emerging trends that we had coming into 2020 that were at, various stages in their emergence and kind of, how accepted or how adapted they've been in the industry, and that many of those have just truly accelerated because of COVID. And there's a lot of things that I think we're going to see going forward once all this is behind us in the next, coming months, years, obviously we're all hoping as soon as possible, but no one can predict. But there are certain things that the industry has now, I would say, more widely accepted currently because of a need, that are now going to stay because it makes the operation and it makes the customer experience or the guest experience better. For example, virtual queuing. We might see waiting in line become, maybe not a total thing of the past, but a small fraction of what we have now. Mobile, everything going mobile, whether it's buying your tickets, whether it's, reserving, ride times or virtual queuing or food and beverage ordering is now becoming massive. And it has existed for a little bit, but it had just sort of kind of been trickling in with some early adopters. But now everyone needs to be early adopters to a lot of these major changes, reservations and booking. I know in the trampoline park industry, for instance, that's kind of been a common practice for the most part. Whereas now I think it's going to be more of a common practice in more types of family entertainment and in more types of attractions that really controls capacity, even hopefully when capacity restrictions are much higher or lifted entirely, that this might be a practice to continue doing, because there is that greater element of control with that, to be able to manage the flow of guests and ultimately provide that better experience, which allows for those service touch points to happen. So that guest experience of that overarching, idea of how our guests, really interacting with our attractions and what is it that they're finding favorable and what is it that they're not. And we'll find out, because guests are going to tell us. That's going to be the best way. They're going to speak with their dollars and they're going to speak with their words. So make sure to combine, what's working from a revenue standpoint, as well as, what's working or maybe not working from feedback standpoint. Aligning those two together that's where we're really going to find out where the industry needs to be going. And there's probably going to be other opportunities that, that I haven't mentioned. I'm sure many other people can come up with a longer list. Probably a lot of things that we haven't even come up with yet from the innovative standpoint of really just continuing to improve our industry, because there's no plateau. We can keep getting better.
Right. Now, I want us to get a little bit back to BackLooper.
Sure.
About the webinar that's going to happen next Thursday. You are going to speak about the guest feedback strategy. Can you give us a short insight on what guest feedback strategy should be and what we will be speaking about at that webinar? I mean, you will be speaking about, I'm probably going to listen.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. So it's going to be kind of broken down into 3 main components, and we're going to talk about a number of reasons why it's so important to be collecting guest feedback. And all of those reasons are just as, if not even more important today as they were pre-COVID. And then we're going to talk about kind of the guest feedback checklist. So if you're looking to improve the way that you collect and use feedback, what you need to put in place within your operations and within your guest experience that will help you do that. And then we're going to be talking about optimizing your feedback loop from this 3-step process of the feedback collection, the response to the guest, and then reacting in terms of turning it internally to continually to improve those processes for the future and for the next wave of guests who come in and learn from their feedback and keep that feedback loop going. So I even looked at it yesterday. I started kind of mapping out the content last night, and there's 17 actionable takeaways from it that between those 3 components that you'll be able to find. So yeah, that's going to be on Thursday, September 10th.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I'm done. I had my questions, and thank you very much for sharing all the info, for participating here with us today. I'm looking forward to the webinar on Thursday, and see you then. I'm going to grab my notes because I just feel that there is plenty of info that we need to know, and not only from an operator standpoint, but from a developer such as ours point. My guess is that there will be plenty of useful content.
Well, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to speak about it, and these were great questions. Love doing this interview. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Josh. Take care and have a nice one.
You too.
Bye-bye.